I am Jen Hack Wolf with the Beacon in Kansas City. We do public service journalism. We're a new nonprofit. And I'm also speaking about network mapping, but this is going to be the Michael Scott tell it to me like I'm five version of network mapping. So you guys can understand how to do this in your newsrooms and why we do this all the time and how this is helping our journalism. So we're a startup newsroom. And one of the most common questions we get is how do you come up with your story ideas? And with Election SOS, we have a really good answer to this question now, and that's through network mapping. So network mapping, also known as stakeholder mapping, if you're Googling to look for Google images, there's lots of ways you could do it. On the left, there's a version on a whiteboard. On the right is a prettier version we did for our election coverage. But what you're basically doing is mapping out the relationships and stakeholders around a given topic that you're trying to cover. It helps you ask really good questions, and it helps you identify some audiences and people that you're not doing a great job of representing yet. So how do we do it? The first piece of advice I would recommend is to get together a group of people, a diverse group of people with different perspectives. This is really helpful because this work just isn't that much fun to do it alone. And if you get lots of people in the room, this will help you identify some good questions. Focus on critical information needs. So we did the network map for our election coverage, and that really helped us narrow in on an audience where we could be of better service. So those were areas with low voter turnout, and we found that there were a lot of language needs in those areas. So we worked with community partners who are close to the ground in those communities to help us develop election guides in 5 different languages for Kansas and Missouri. We like Jamboard as a tool, so I recommend doing this, especially if you're doing collaborative virtual meetings. It's probably already on your email client in Gmail. You just click over on the right and open a Jamboard. It's super intuitive to use and anyone can join in. And we like it because you can move the Post-its around and make them bigger and smaller to indicate different relationships. So this is one we did just yesterday for the economics beat. We have a reporter who's been working in that beat for several months now, and we wanted to look back at how she's been covering economic development and consider where could be some areas to do things a little bit differently. So this is how we mapped those relationships. And another tip I have is to, when you wrap up one of these meetings, you always want to make sure you're talking about next steps, because this isn't meant to be a one-time thing where you create the map and then you never look at it again. You really want to find ways that you can be accountable to each other and figure out how you're going to start working towards some improvement. So why should you bother to do network mapping, and why do we do it all the time? I think it's a really great place to start. So if you're feeling stuck or you don't know how to approach a really big topic, or you're trying to do something new, it's a really good place to start. I think it democratizes some of the decision making in your newsroom, so everyone has a voice and a vote. It strengthens the journalism. When we started doing this approach, every time we do this, I swear we get responses from the community that are saying, I really appreciate the diversity of perspectives. I really appreciate how you guys are doing things differently. So it does make a difference. It promotes accountability. It gives you something to go back to say, hey, why are we always talking to the same few people? And how can we drive our coverage in a different way? And then finally, I really like that doing this work automatically gets you thinking about those DEIB topics and gives you a comfortable way to approach them in your newsroom. So here's that big question again. How do you come up with your story ideas? And I got this question just last month at our community advisory board meeting. A woman wanted to know, how are we ensuring that we're not just picking stories based on what we organically find out about in our lives in Kansas City, but that we have strategies to make sure that we're reaching out to broader communities. And that's network mapping.